Okay, so once again going with the theme of children's movies and Roald Dahl this week, I know that in at least half the videos I make on this channel, it seems, I complain about how mature kids' movies are and how their entertainment should consider them a little more. But instead of going into that whole thing again, today I would instead like to give some credit where it's due for a change to a very famous and well-known children's movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. A tale of whimsy, fantasy, luck, temptation, and of course, chocolate. This may just be one of the greatest kids' movies ever made, and not the least of which for Gene Wilder's legendary performance as Willy Wonka. Now, obviously, there will be spoilers ahead, so if you've never seen this movie before but plan to, you should probably turn off the video before we go any further. You have been warned. Alright, so to get right into it, I know there are some out there who would disagree with my assessment that this is one of the best children's movies out there, considering the infamous boat ride scene, the questionable actions of Grandpa Joe, and of course, all those conspiracy theories about Wonka being a serial killer and having killed each respective child that failed his test. But to tackle the good stuff first, the thing is, this movie gets children. Roald Dahl just had a way of capturing kid logic and relating to them. No matter how much he hated and disowned the film, you can still easily see Dahl's influence on the final product. And there are times dedicated solely to the children. And not only are they really effective, but they also help serve to get the many morals of Dahl's book across. Because this movie actually has many valuable lessons for children to learn, and maybe one or two for the parents as well, ranging from the dangers of being a glutton to not overdoing the gum chewing to not being a brat, as well as the fact that the parents are the ones who are responsible if they are, to the fact that too much TV is a bad thing. And in the age of the internet and streaming services, that last one might be even more relevant than ever. But the point is, the children's obviously bad behavior combined with their respective fates, as well as an Oompa Loompa song to reinforce the consequences of their actions, makes it easy for children to get the message. Sure, it may come across as a bit obvious, but never to the point of being annoying or preachy. And then there's the more abstract stuff involving Charlie, ranging from the evils of temptation and the importance of always doing the right thing, to having faith in your dreams even when they appear impossible. Really, like I just said, this movie is just jam-packed full of valuable life lessons for both children and adults alike. But once again, the important thing to remember here is that it captures the whimsy of Roald Dahl's book and focuses just as much on the fun and adventure of lucky winners getting to explore a chocolate factory full of impossible wonders. Because another important thing to remember here is that for most children, a movie like this is a dream come true. Getting to explore a candy factory full of things that don't exist in the real world, all the while being guided by the friendly and enthusiastic, if somewhat eccentric, owner? Let's face it, envy may be Charlie's deadly sin, if one he's able to keep in check, but every single kid in the audience is feeling it towards him throughout. Giant geese, television transportation, a foam car with instant dry cleaning, and 100 other things make this a tale that unapologetically dives right into the mind of a child and has a ton of fun in doing so. And the music numbers only punctuate this point further, with the first 5 minutes easily transporting the audience into a world of fantasy not too different from our own, but for every hardship, there is fun and hope to make up for it. And there's also some more clever humor thrown in as well, with the search for the golden tickets being a clever satire on consumerism and the media, as well as Wonka's constant quotations of classic literature. But as I touched on earlier, even the darker elements of the story serve a purpose. Charlie's hardships and struggles with poverty are meant to remind all of us, but especially children, to always hold out hope no matter what, and that someday you will get your chance. And when Charlie's comes, he ends up with more than he ever could have imagined. And it's a very similar story with the infamous boat scene. Though at first appearing to just be a random scene meant to scare the audience and show Wonka's love of messing with people, Roald Dahl actually wrote that part for a very specific reason, which was to impart the lesson that most of the time you aren't in control of your own life, and while the ride may look scary, you can either choose to live in fear or just enjoy it. And to drive this point home, Charlie and Grandpa Joe enjoy most of it, while everybody else is scared stiff and tries repeatedly in vain to get Wonka to stop. Now, how well this moral actually comes through on screen is harder to say, but that was what Dahl had in mind when he wrote the scene, and undoubtedly what the makers of the film were going for as well. And while we're on the topic of that, there's also the backlash against Grandpa Joe, since he spends all day in bed insisting he's going to get up and help out, but only does so when offered to do something fun, and from there appears absolutely fine. But again, in keeping with his style, what Roald Dahl was clearly going for with the character, especially because he describes him as, quote, 96 and a half years old, is that he's an old man whose spirit has been completely broken by a lifetime of poverty, and the prospect of going to the factory reinvigorates him. The problem, however, is that it's hard to translate that on screen without either outright saying that's the case, or showing magic sparkles falling from the golden ticket and onto Grandpa Joe, and suddenly he starts dancing. That might work in an animated movie, but in live action... However, there are still implications of this throughout the movie. You notice how he basically insists that Charlie will find a ticket, and when told off for being unrealistic with him, practically shouts, "That boy's gotta have something in this world to hope for. What's he got to hope for now?" And that, combined with his line in "I've got a golden ticket," "I never thought my life could be anything but catastrophe," does imply that this man has not had an easy life. It's very possible that all he ever knew was failure, poverty, and misery, for the most part, and it eventually broke him to the point that he didn't even have the will to stand up, no matter how much he wanted to help out. And Charlie finding the ticket and asking him to go gave him enough hope to have the will to stand up and walk around again. Now I know that is a stretch, but let's face it, this isn't exactly a realistic movie. Does match up pretty well with Roald Dahl's interpretation of the character, and it would explain why he wants Charlie to have hope so badly, because he doesn't want to see him end up broken like he is. Honestly, forget Willy Wonka, it's Grandpa Joe they should do a prequel about. Because like I just said, there could be quite an interesting, dark, and tragic story behind that unassuming face. And as for all those conspiracy theories surrounding the movie, they're just that, theories. Some people just love to come up with really dark interpretations of wholesome entertainment, but that doesn't mean they're accurate or true. Now listen, if you love these theories or even believe them, That's absolutely fine. All I'm saying is that the movie clearly isn't meant to be about a serial killer offing children and turning them into food. The kids are supposed to get battered up a bit so they'll learn a valuable lesson, not killed. Again, have fun with your conspiracy theories all day long if you wish. I'm just saying that a couple of dark theories that can't be supported by anything directly shown doesn't automatically make it unsuitable for children. It's what's shown on screen that counts here, and there is absolutely nothing offensive throughout, in any way. So at the end of the day, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory has all the hallmarks of a great children's movie. It's wholesome, it's got music, it's got a lot of great lessons to be learned, it's got good characters, it understands what appeals to children, it's got stuff to keep the adults entertained, and most of all, it's got candy. And Gene Wilder, definitely can't forget about him either. Because despite what Roald Dahl had to say, I honestly believe he was perfect for the part. Because Wilder plays Wonka as an eccentric trickster with the mind of a child, but with some surprising wisdom to impart as well. And in the end, it is through his song Pure Imagination that he basically sums up exactly what makes this movie so good. Just like Willy Wonka himself, they simply took all the right ingredients and mixed them up into the perfect concoction. And it's a flavor that very few kids' movies have been able to duplicate, even decades after its release. Alright, I think that's everything I have to say on that, at least for the moment. But now I'd like you to tell me, do you believe Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is one of the greatest live-action kids' movies ever made? Or do you think it's overrated and that I'm giving it too much credit? Please feel free to let me know in the comments. And remember, you don't have to agree with my opinions in this or any other video. You can feel any way about any topic we discuss that you want to. And finally, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And I hope to see you all next time.